Hi, and welcome to 15 Minutes of Fame. I am the fake Geoff Driscoll.
And I'm Jim Kerr, and happy that I'm far enough away from this brutal fighting machine that is Mr. Driscoll.
Check out that
What a
shiner.
beauty. That's a good Canadian boy right there. What happened, Geoff?
Well, Jim, I was playing basketball against fire-breathing dragons, and one of their tails hit me in the face, if you can believe it. I was going up to grab the board, and I tried to pull it down. I tried to duck under it just, it all happened so fast. I'm just happy to be alive at this point, I would say.
Well, you must have been distracted by the elbow driving towards your face. That's fine. That's fine.
I'll admit, I was thinking about the 360 windmill dunk I was going to drop at the other end of the floor before I even pulled it down.
Forgiven.
All right, enough about what an unreal athlete I am. I'm in Hinton, Alberta right now in my hotel room because I'm on the road for work. Kersey is back at home in Edmonton after a couple of weeks in Mexico.
Yeah, and part of the reason I'm at home is because I'm not leaving the house. It is too cold. It feels like November. But it must be almost March because it was the trade deadline.
That's right, Jim. And by the way, don't worry that the words I'm saying don't match up with the words you're hearing, at least on the left side of the screen. This is pretty much what I said the first time we recorded this video, give or take the compliments about Jim that you'll hear dusted throughout. The trade deadline has come and gone. It wasn't the most exciting one we've had, but there was a deal involving the Oilers. That would be the one that sent Dustin Penner to the LA Kings for a first-round pick this year, a conditional pick next year, and defensive prospect Colton Tubert. Seems like a pretty good deal for the Oilers. What do you think about that one, Jim?
Well, it was either going to be Dustin Penner or Ales Hemsky. We heard Ladislav Smed's name thrown in there as well, but the two main names that we heard in the past few weeks here were Penner and Hemsky. I'm not too surprised that it was Penner, but I am a bit surprised at what they got back. I mean, a first-round draft pick, that's huge in itself, but something beyond that is great as well. And we got a good defensive prospect. We need defensemen, and we need good defensemen. They do have the Oilers quite a few good defensive prospects. So this is where the development comes in, and hopefully we're able to bring the Petries and now Tubert and some of these other guys, bring them to the next level. Whether it's next year, whether it's partway through next year, whether it's the year after, you do it right. These are guys that could be with the team for, a long time.
You know what, Jim? You're absolutely right. Couldn't agree with you more. Also, your hair is immaculate. But sticking with the topic at hand, I think the Oilers ended up getting a great deal for Penner. If they manage those assets well, it could end up being a very strong deal. That said, we're talking about the team giving up a big body on the top line here, not to mention one who's scored a lot of goals for the Oilers in the past couple of seasons. You've got to think that with the smaller forwards the Oilers have, the Eberles, the Halls, for example, they're a small group. You've got to think that the team is going to really miss that size up front here.
Yeah, and I guess you could say that Penner doesn't always play as big as he is, which is, maybe one thing. He's got his own style of game, right? And he doesn't always play the way some other guys his size play. The other thing is you have to look at it this way, that the season for the Oilers, hate to say it, but it's basically over. I mean, they have games remaining, but they're not making the playoffs, and they're not, challenging for a Stanley Cup. So you get rid of him now, you get something for him, and then I would imagine the thinking is that during the off season, that's when you start to maybe add or subtract, or you bring in some more size. But size up front is definitely going to be an issue, like you say. And a small group of forwards needs one or two big guys. Even if it's only just to just the threat of a big hit, or the threat of you look at the Anaheim Ducks, for example. They've got a big team, and that's a bit part of the reason that they're so successful. And Penner, of course, is was there before, but they're going to have to do something in the offseason, I would imagine, to maybe gain some size. But as well as that, I mean, the small guys need to get the size on themselves too. The bigger, stronger you are, you might not need that extra body.
Absolutely. It's going to be a long offseason for the Oilers for sure. Lots to do for the team. They could even end up packaging those picks into a deal for someone else if they so choose before the draft in June. Back to Penner, though. How do you think he'll do in Los Angeles? I think he's a good fit there myself. Plus, he's familiar with the area, lives there in the off season, trains there. And let's be honest, the LA Kings have a good group of players, a lot of whom are former Oilers, oddly enough. And it's a team that could end up making some noise in the Western Conference come playoff time.
Yeah, I think he'll fit in very well there as well. That's the first thing I thought. I'm thinking about up and down their roster. They do play a lot like those Ducks, and he had success there too.
Let's talk about the deadline as a whole. I know you didn't get up until about 10 a.m. Myself, I didn't really keep too close an eye on things during the morning when normally I'd be all over it. It was more like deadline week than deadline day in a lot of ways. Is this the end of the big trade deadline extravaganza as we know it here? Or
Yeah.
should we all huddle around our TVs and laptops this time next year again?
Well, I think it's all about when those first moves start coming in. When you get the Caberlets and that dealt days ahead of the deadline, obviously that's gonna. But that said, had Brad Richards been dealt today, maybe that would have opened up a few more trades, and I still love it. It wasn't as it wasn't as busy today on Monday, which you'd think was bad, but if you're sitting there blogging about it, it's kind of good because you don't have to write as much.
Jim, you are as lazy as you are good looking, and you are one lazy guy.
Yeah, that log jam at the end can be hectic when 17 trades come out at the same time. When it's 5 or 6, that's a little easier to manage.
Yeah, I guess when you look at it that way. All right, trade talk over. Let's get into the GABBYs. That is the good and the bad by you. Each week, we take 3 good and 3 bad stories from around the world of sports and lay them out for your viewing pleasure. And hey, if you see something that you think should feature here, give us a shout on Twitter, Facebook, send us an email. Let us know. Personally, I think my black eye should be good because it makes me look so cool. Anyways, on the good side of things, as we all know, Carmelo Anthony finally traded by the Denver Nuggets last week, ending months and months of speculation about his future. That should be good all on its own because it was getting a bit trying hearing it all the time. However, since moving to the New York Knicks, Melo has made a big impact, averaging over 27 points, 9 rebounds in his first few games, included a loss to Cleveland and a win over Miami, oddly enough. Jim, should we believe he wasn't into it in Denver?
No, because with Denver, everyone kind of made it sound like he wanted out, but I think a lot of that was manufactured by the media. Most of the quotes you hear from him are when he's asked questions about this, and he was having a great season in Denver, so I don't think it's that, but it's always fun to see a guy playing for his hometown boyhood team. So good for him, because
Let me just stop you right there. Does this make the New York Knicks a legitimate contender?
him and Amare, man, that's a pretty good couple of guys there. We'll see. It makes them more competitive. The Knicks are good for the first time in a while, so it's an interesting dynamic all around. English soccer this past weekend, Geoff. A 48-year trophy drought was ended when Birmingham beat Arsenal in the final of the Carling Cup. It was a defensive miscue by the Gunners. You can't get much more of an upset than that. A team in the relegation zone beating one of the top flight teams when one of the top flight teams makes a horrible mistake in the 89th minute. Mwah, beautiful.
Jim, I'm not much of a soccer fan myself, but if this is how it was every weekend, I would definitely watch. 90-minute stoppage time, you name it. This is the kind of thing that makes sports exciting. Plus, it's nice to see that long drought come to an end.
Yeah. Oh, it's good to see. 48 years without a trophy. That's a long time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The Red Wings signed goalie Jimmy Howard to a 2-year contract extension on Monday. The reason we're calling this one a good is because Howard has racked up almost 70 wins over not even 2 seasons.
It's pretty good.
Took a deal worth of $4.5 million, a far cry from the $6 million contract of a few years ago. That's quite the difference. Did he take a hometown discount here, Jim?
Well, I think with the Red Wings organization, you see that quite a bit. But yeah, 4.5 over 2 years doesn't seem like much for a guy who, is putting up back-to-back 30-plus win seasons. But what we've seen especially in the last year, is that these guys who were making $6 million no longer have jobs, which yeah, seems like a bit of a slide. But I guess it's good to see that, because maybe that is a trend that we'll see more, and you are seeing it more, where goalies are actually $2 million and a bit is pretty high for the going rate from what we've seen with some goalies lately. Let's turn our focus to the bad side of things, Geoff.
Sure.
We're going to start this one with a bizarre story out of Colombia.
This is crazy.
Yeah. Deportivo Pereira's Luis Moreno.
I didn't know you spoke Spanish, Jim.
I spent a bit of time abroad. He's in trouble and could face further sanctions after. Now, I want you to listen closely and just let the words embrace you. Okay. He kicked an injured owl during a game. Yeah, see, well, I picture the owl sitting on the sideline, pulling up its sock and feeling its knee, going, oh man, and this guy just booting it. So he says he kicked it to see if it would fly, because it was obviously just sitting there on the sidelines. It's all true, amazingly enough. That's the most amazing part. The owl's the mascot of the other team and is considered a good luck charm, believe it or not, day to day with a broken leg. My question is, who fouled the owl in the first place? Like that?
This story is just too much for me. How does this type of thing even happen? Is this an only in Colombia sort of story?
Yeah.
And who kicks a bird to see if it'll fly?
That's what I thought. Did he get the free kick? I don't know.
Let's keep things rolling here. Still with soccer, another strange one here. EPL club Chelsea is taking action after one of its players accidentally shot an intern with an air gun at the team's training facility, not realizing it was loaded. Of course, he didn't check. Defender Ashley Cole apparently ended up shooting the intern in the side with a lead pellet. What is with pro athletes and guns in the dressing room, and what's with people and interns?
Well, I started by one of those presidents. That's a strange one. I mean, I guess you don't need a license to carry this caliber of air gun, but playing around with a gun, how do you get to be the age you are, not knowing that you shouldn't wave around a gun? And I don't know. It's bizarre, but not as bizarre as this next story, Geoff. We're going to round up the bad side of this week's Gabbies with another one out of the world of soccer. Just stay with me on this one. Late in an under-20 World Cup qualifier between Chile and Ecuador, Chilean defender Brian Carrasco grabbed the arm of a guy he was defending, whose back was to him, and hit himself in the face, and then fell and drew a free kick. He actually fooled the ref, but when you see the replay, he literally grabs his arm, hits himself in the face, and goes, oh. Have you? They lost. They were down 1-0 at that point. They lost. Have you ever seen anything like that, Geoff?
I've never seen anything like that in sports, but all I can think about when I hear this one is the old, stop hitting yourself, stop hitting yourself. All right. We got to go into quick hits here. Blake Griffin won the dunk competition at the All-Star game last week. Dude jumped over a car, Jim. Do you think gimmicks are the only thing the dunk competition has left?
I don't think so, because every year, apart from the jumping over cars and stuff, every year there's something, a different spin on something that you haven't seen before, and I think I'd rather see that than jumping over a car. But Blake Griffin's my boy. He does incredible things during a game, never mind in a dunk contest. So
you should see me dunking.
It's tough to say.
I give rims black eyes. You've never seen anything like it, my friend.
Well, that's the best.
That's our 15 minutes of fame up for this week. Tune in next week when we get a whole new 15 minutes of fame. Until then, I'm fake Jeffrey Driscoll.
And I'm Jim Kerr. Get some ice on that eye, Geoff.